I'm waiting for the live to start to make sure we have a connection. I believe we do. Okay, here we go. Hi guys, welcome back to the Dinosaur Omelette. I am Christopher.
I'm Angela.
That's the wife Angela. Welcome guys, thanks for coming in. Tonight we're talking about
Quail. We're talking about quail, raising quail. What's the news about the quail?
Oh, hey Sharon, thanks for stopping in. If you guys have any questions, please put them in the comments. People on Facebook, I'm simultaneously broadcasting on YouTube. And a lot of the educational material, the links are on the YouTube channel. So if you want them, they're free, they're easy to get. Just click on there. And I'll talk about those in a second. Anyway, welcome guys. If you're new here, if you're first time, we're a small homestead here in glorious, beautiful, where are we located?
We're in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. It's the southeast Pennsylvania.
Yeah, southeast PA in Lancaster, PA, Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Really gorgeous area. I have some videos on our YouTube channel of all the beautiful outdoor stuff. So, tonight on our little homestead channel, we're going to be discussing what you need to know about quail. So, a nice friend of ours named Griffin, he mentioned he asked some questions about these critters recently. So we decided to do a educational session on the quail again. Hey, I'm here in Ohio that's Kelly, looking for fireflies with the kids and they never see them. Hey, Kelly, I hope you're having fun. They're at the Quail Con.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so tonight we're going to do an overview of quail. Do you have anything important to blab about right quick? No? Okay.
No, I mean, we encourage people to learn new skills, especially when it comes to self-sufficiency, homesteading, life skills, things that will benefit you, your family, your kids, things that you can also teach and pass on. But we're big into quality of life, day to day, taking care of ourselves as a whole, our bodies, our minds, our spirits, and just actively participating and educating ourselves and encouraging you guys to do that. As far as health goes.
Yeah, 100%, guys. That's why we do these educational videos. A lot of people, I always say, seek the path of least resistance. And unfortunately, for personal growth and well-being, there are no shortcuts. You do have to put in a little bit of leg effort and do some work. I'm in Central VA.
Virginia.
Yeah, it's Virginia. Thanks for stopping in. Yeah, if you have any questions, again, about these quail, if you're new to them, if you want to know anything, let us know. We've been raising them for 4 years now.
Yeah.
We have a lot of experience with them, and they've been our primary critter here down at the old dinosaur house. So, one thing too, you guys, if you're on the YouTube channel, like I said, I can't get the links on Facebook. They don't like them too much in the description. But this checklist, this quail raising checklist, a lot of the stuff I'm going to go over tonight is in this little pamphlet down in the description. I think it's the top thing on there. And it will really get you like turnkey educated on operating and raising quail successfully. They're relatively simple, but there's a few things to know about them. And that's what we're going to discuss tonight. So again, get ready for some fun. This shouldn't be too long. We've done these quail things before, and they go on for a while. But I think I'm going to hit on the important points.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't take forever. Unless you guys want to have a forever chat. I don't mind. I like doing the tube and doing the Facebook because I like hearing you guys' questions. Okay, so I guess we'll get started, right?
Yeah, sure.
All right, cool. So, what is a quail? Why are we doing quail? To the new people, I'm going to give you the huge benefits of these quails. I'm going to discuss them. It's a short format. But these are the points that really people gravitated towards and why these animals were so popular. And why they are still a popular choice as an egg producer and a meat producer. They do produce meat.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Do you mind grabbing out our show and tell animal, please?
Oh, I declared I wasn't going to touch him.
I'm gonna get the quail out.
We have a male jumbo quail here for
show
show and tell.
If I can get him out without going crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to try to hold him without squishing him too much. So, he's a male. He's a little smaller. The females get a little larger, right? But to give you an idea how big these birds are in my hand. So here's a quail. This is a Jumbo Coturnix quail or a Coturnix japonica. Okay.
He's a wild type or the pharaoh.
It doesn't look huge, right? It's a smaller bird. And
it's like
it
a
is.
Grapefruit.
Yeah, it's about the size of a grapefruit. They're tinier. We always say grapefruit. I don't know why we compare him to a grapefruit, but he's about this big.
It's the visual.
I have small man hands, so he's actually kind of big. They're good sized birds,
nice
and they produce a fair amount of meat. And I don't have a female, but he's getting a little spooked.
I think he's lightly molting too.
Yeah, he's losing his feathers. If you look, these are pretty distinguishable. They look like wild birds. And the male, because he's trying to get a female, has this red pattern. It's a reddish colored breast, whereas the female will be speckled. It'll have black and white speckles. I don't have a girl in here with us.
Here's a cute cartoon drawing illustration that Christopher did of females with the speckles.
Yeah, they have the speckles. But this is a jumbo quail. There are several variety of quail, okay? But this is the breed in particular, the Jumbo Coturnix, that we've chosen for meat production.
And we chose this particular breed because they are the largest in size, and then they lay the most amount of eggs that are larger. They're the largest variety of eggs for the quail. Because they're jumbo size.
Cool, yeah. So, right. So what are the eggs? What do the eggs look like? How big are the eggs? Is it worth getting these quail for tiny eggs? Well, are the eggs tiny? They're relatively tinier than a chicken egg, yes. So can you hold this? Mm-hmm. This is a quail egg, okay? And here's a chicken egg. All right, so why am I raising quail? Why would I raise quail when this egg is small? Well, a chicken is also actually, much larger, and they take up much more space. And a quail, of course, is much smaller and takes up much less space. And just to give you guys an idea, the equivalency of this egg to this egg, you need approximately three and a half maybe, of these to be the equivalent of a large regular chicken egg. Okay, 3 to 1. It's very simple mathematics. And that's kind of the rule we go by when we're designing or filling out objectives for the number of animals we want.
Yeah, to figure out how many eggs you would like to eat per week, sort of thing.
So what's the benefit of this quail if they're laying the smaller eggs? So this is where your logistics comes in and your planning comes in, and you're looking at the other associated benefit of the quail. So the quail, being a smaller bird, it takes up less space. You can have more creatures, more little quail in a smaller area. Mm-hmm. I don't know how many chickens you can stuff into a box this big.
Well, and thinking about their quality of life, their production, like, for example, the hen houses for the factory farms, they put a lot of hens in a tiny, tiny space. And of course, the hens are, they're not happy, they're bald patches, and it's just, So we're talking about keeping the quail nice and healthy,
vibrant.
And it's a huge difference with how many you can put in a small space.
So again, I'm not going to go over the huge details because I did delineate all this stuff in those cool little handouts that are for free, just in the links in this YouTube video to tell you about how to plan the square footage and all that with your structure. But I'm going to discuss it briefly anyway, so you have an idea. So 3 quail, generally, we say would be the maximum per 1 square foot of flooring space, right? Mm-hmm. 3 quail for 1 square foot. So if I have a 4 foot by 2 foot, that's 8 square feet, right? So 8 square feet of floor. I have a 4 foot cage by 2 feet deep. That's 8 square feet times 3. 3 quail per square foot. That's 24, a maximum of 24. We usually don't max out on all the birds, but you can fit 24 in there. They should be fine as long as the environment's not stressful for them. Mm-hmm. And they have access to food and water, and it's properly ventilated. I'm going to go over cages in a minute because the structure, the hutches are pretty important for raising these animals. But that's a huge benefit. They don't take up a lot of space. They're relatively quiet. You don't have a lot of noise being produced. Like, what does the hen do?
A chicken, a chicken hen.
Chicken hen, not a quail.
No matter the breed, will do an egg song. So she will announce to the world that she has just produced an egg. And
or a chicken lays an egg. You hear them. They make a lot of noise. If you have 6 chickens, you got 6 chicken noises. So the quail are laying And they don't make a lot of noise. They don't make a noise when they're laying an egg. And the quail are proficient layers. There's approximately over 300 eggs per hen per year.
Yeah.
Yes?
So generally, if you have, let's just say you have 24 quail females, quail hens, you're going to get around like 20, maybe 21 to maybe 26 eggs a day. Sometimes a hen will lay double in a day, and sometimes a hen will take a break. So you're going to get a whole bunch of eggs per day.
Yeah. And so that would be, if you're wondering with the chicken math, with how many chicken eggs that would be, it's 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21. So about 5, 6, maybe 7 eggs equivalent. Just from the 24 quail, equivalent to chicken eggs in that smaller hutch area. So that's the huge benefits of these things. They're small, they take up less space, they're proficient layers, and, ooh, here's another one.
Well, to finish your thought on the noise, the quail, they make like, the females make like a cricket sound, and the males, if you have males, and if you have them appropriate ratio, hen to female, we recommend 5 hens to 1 male, and you can put them, you can multiply, different sets in one space. That way the hens, if you want to reproduce chicks, then the hens are getting serviced without being overly worn from the male. But anyway, the male, he'll make like a chartly sound. It's similar to like a wild bird. Your neighbors, if they're not familiar with quail at all, would not know what they are. They would assume they're wild birds.
Wait, that's not true. When we first got these things, I thought we had a monster in the backyard.
I thought it was like a gremlin thing. It was so funny.
Yeah,
It was just a foreign sound to him.
When we first got the quail, and they finally grew up, and they started making their
really
quail
funny.
noises. The very first time I heard them, this was years ago. So, ah! Like that.
It's like a chartly. It's in their
It's
throat.
like a wild bird noise, but what the hell was that? You were being invaded?
Yeah.
So
So
it didn't tell me it was a quail. Now I know.
If you have the males appropriate ratio, then the males are busy and they don't crow very much.
Yeah, and again, in that PDF, in that Q&A, I write all this stuff. We wrote that from scratch, so all the information there it's good information. We go into the ratio of birds. Now with quail, here's another important thing. The ratio of male to female. You do not, like she was saying, want to have too many males who are competing for the breeding rights, to breed with the females. So if you have 4 males and 3 or 4 hens, right, they're going to be in stiff competition. They're going to be competing each other, and that's when they start vocalizing. That's when they start overbreeding hens. And that's when they can become aggressive towards one another.
And your hens will look like they've been in a fight with a lawnmower perpetually. So the reason why anybody would want a higher number of males, like 4 hens to 1 rooster, or even less, would be somebody with like a breeding program, and perhaps they have, maybe they're even a business and they're shipping hatching eggs out, and they want to increase the chance that all the eggs they're shipping are fertile, and other times people are breeding for colors, and they have little projects going on, and maybe they only have 2 or 3 females of a specific color, so they'll pair them with a male. But if you're doing it, like for food, for eggs, for sustenance, really 5 hens to 1 male. The amount of the fertility rate should be around like 90% of the eggs they're laying will be fertile. And if you want the hens to look even better, you can even have 6 hens to 1 male, and it'll be like 80% of the eggs, maybe mid-80s.
Yeah, and by the way, too, on our YouTube channel, we went over a lot of this stuff. We do live videos every week, practically, and we do long-form education. So if you really want to go feel your brain with the stuff we've done, we have instructions on all of this stuff. The breeding, the ratios, like how to hatch, the structures, the housing, all that good stuff. But, I'm not going to do 6 hours here, but you're welcome to go over there and check it out. So, one other thing, Sharon from, if I sent out a link on one of the Facebook groups, because somebody was asking, can you do this? I'm thinking of doing this as a business. So I don't know if that was her or not. But if it is, feel free to ask a question if you have something pertaining to quail in that kind of idea, in that mindset, like as business.
Yeah.
So we talked about eggs, egg production, minimal space for structure, low noise. Ooh, good one. I'll let Angela talk because I talk too much. Talk about how quickly they grow and reproduce.
Yeah,
Which
so
that's a benefit
everything
compared
with
to chickens.
Yeah, so everything with the quail, and we're strictly talking about the jumbo quail. There are a standard size, a smaller size quail, and there's a lot of varieties. And there are a few different varieties even of the jumbos as far as colors go.
The weight of the jumbo quail, sorry to
Yeah.
track you, because they're probably good at, people are wondering, like how much do they weigh? How much does a male, female weigh?
Well, for it to be considered a jumbo, it should be minimum 10 ounces. Or more. And usually if you have a breeding program that you're going and you're intentionally tracking weights and such, then it's not difficult to get them to an average, like the females averaging 12 to 13 ounces. You might, like the 13 is a good average number, I would say. And then the males, they're a little trickier to get up and keep them up in weight. So, I mean, it's definitely, you want to be intentional with your breeding program. But yeah, they will be around like 11, 12. You can get them up to the 13, but it's usually like the 11 and 12 ounces.
Okay.
And so anyway, they grow very quickly. That's a huge difference with quail and like standard chicken, like chickens in general. You can compare them a lot to broiler chickens, actually, as far as the growth rate goes. Not how much weight they put on, but when they're ready for processing and such. Or, well, yeah. So if you're having a meat program, you're growing males. Perhaps you're growing the males out for meat. By 8 weeks old, they're ready to process, and you can grow them a little longer to 10 weeks, but you'll just get like 2 extra ounces. So 8 weeks, they're ready, just like the broiler chickens, they're ready. People even do broilers at 6 weeks, but 8 weeks is a pretty good standard. And they can...
Can I add? However, at 8 weeks of age, broilers are not going to be able to reproduce.
Right. Because they're chickens.
They're still
adolescents.
They're
really.
adolescent. They're not going to be laying eggs anytime soon. Whereas the quail, they are laying eggs by that time.
Yeah, they
can be reproduced and hatched.
They become sexually mature by 6 weeks. The hens will start laying eggs about 6 weeks, maybe give or take. Like a week or two, depending on the environment that they have. If you are meeting all their needs, they're lighting, and they're stress-free, then 6 weeks they're laying eggs and becoming really consistent. By 8 weeks, the males will start to get active. Like when you're looking at chickens, laying chickens, they will start laying between 5 and 7 months of age. So that's a huge difference. Yeah, so that's the eggs and the meat. The chicks, they're hatching. If you're putting them in an incubator and hatching them, they're hatching. They're going to start hatching on day 16. They'll be hatching through 17. Should be finishing up by day 18. And chickens is usually 21 days. And then they have a rapid state of growth. They're just growing very quickly throughout their juvenile stage.
Yeah, let me just say, some people like the quail, I'm going to say if you're raising them as food or food producers, they may not really have the personality that the chicken has. Like the chickens, you have a smaller number of them. You're much more involved with them and tactile and hands-on. You're feeding them, you're walking around, they're interacting with you. And your quail, you're going to have a bunch of them in a cage, and you're really not interacting with them. I mean, we do know people who keep them as pets, and they become acclimated to humans. But that's probably a little different than their application as a food maker. As a food maker, we're not really buddies because there's so many of them. I'm like, okay, guys, just lay eggs. Do your thing, lay eggs. The chickens are much more personable and interactive. So I just want to throw that in.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna be, it's a numbers issue. You'll be dealing with a higher number of quail to produce the equivalent amount of egg, right?
Yeah.
Can I mention a couple things?
Yeah, of course.
Because we're going to go on in just a second. But there's two other big things that are important with quail for you guys. Is that they're usually not regulated like chickens, so you can have them in suburban areas or even urban areas. We know people who raise them in the cities, in their cul-de-sacs. They raise their quail in these areas, and it's not an issue for them. Check your local ordinances, but it's not an issue. Whereas the chickens are usually restricted because of the noise or what do you call it, manure and all that fun stuff. So chickens are a little more heavily regulated, and the communities are more familiar with chicken as opposed to quail, so they're usually easier to raise in those areas. Okay, Sharon says, in my area, I can only have 6 chicken hens, no roosters. I don't think I even need approval for quails. Do you know? No, I never speak on the legality of that, but usually it's not an issue. Call your local dudes, whether you're in a township or whatever your zoning ordinance are for your area. Contact them. They may not even know.
Yeah.
You know, I've talked to people and they gave me off of the top of the head information.
But you could
then I
also
went into the
find
legal
it online on the state
Yeah.
and county websites. Yeah.
Right. So, yes, as she said, check online or call them. I wish I could tell you, but probably it's not a big issue.
Yeah.
But again, I can't say for sure. What was the other issue? Oh, the other thing with the quail is they're much less expensive
Yeah.
to establish an egg-laying covey. That's what they call a flock. A covey. So it's much less expensive. You know, everybody who has chickens, you're buying a chicken house.
If you're starting from chicks for the chickens or chicks as the quail, to give you the context, the context of the process of raising it and.
Well, I'm just talking about the housing.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
We can talk about that in a second.
Okay.
Yeah, so the housing is much less expensive, and that's really going to be the. I really would advise too. Speaking of housing, that's where you're going to start. Like, I'm building the structure around what my goal is, not what is my goal, and then figure out what you want. Like, am I doing a meat program? Do I want eggs? How many eggs am I trying to get, or how many eggs equivalent to chicken eggs am I trying to produce? Again, all that free cool stuff down in the YouTube links, man, down in the description. It tells you how to do all this stuff. Very easy, fun, easy to read stuff I wrote from scratch. But then you're going to understand, like, okay, now I'm building or I'm finding a structure to satisfy that goal. Okay, rather than, a lot of people build a hutch. They're like, oh, I'm going to build a hutch. Then they go look for animals without doing that research first, without really understanding what they're building around. It's like you're building around your goal, rather than assuming that you can accommodate it just with anything. So you want to understand, like, if you want 24 quail, you're not going to build a small, tiny box. And if you want 10 quail, you're not going to build a huge cage.
Yeah.
You just build to satisfy. If you're building, you can easily modify other structures, old rabbit hutches or whatever kind of pen you might be able to come across. You can really modify them and make it just for the quail.
Yeah. Right.
And save money. And that's another reason these things are really appealing to people.
And there's lots of people who maybe they're new and they want to they're open to pursuing a meat program, but they want to just start with eggs, just get rolling on egg production. So that's just something to keep in mind.
I had to get a water.
No, it's fine. Yeah. Your goals, if you intend to kind of expand, or if you want to start, a certain size and get your feel for it, get familiar with the animals.
These do not look like much, right? They don't look like much. Ask anybody who raises these birds. They will pile up so quickly, and you'll have nothing but eggs, and you'll be like,
you'll be giving them away.
Eat more eggs. Because, if you don't plan right, you're going to have 1 million of these eggs. And they're really good. I eat them. I mean, we eat them all the time. They're great protein. They're a main constituent of my diet. It's a whole food. It's fresh raised here at the house. It's all organic. It's all good stuff. But they pile up really quick. So the estimation, I think intuitively we see a small thing and we think small output. But when you have 1 million small things, it's a big output. So if you have a lot of quail, 20, 30, 40 quail, you're going to get a lot of eggs. A lot of eggs. And I hope you like eggs. or have
Yeah,
somebody to
generally,
get them to, or if you're selling them.
It's generally when you're thinking about, well, how many eggs should I expect from the number of quail I have? Usually it's -2 or +2. You're gonna have in any given day you'll have -2 the number of quail you have, the eggs, or +2. That's like a general rule, +2 eggs for the number of quail you have. So yeah, gives you an idea.
So we went over that stuff. I think we're done with that intro.
Yeah.
That was a 25-minute
That was an
intro,
intro.
to the benefits of the quail and really what is the draw to keeping them as a food producer. I want to show off a hutch because people wonder about hutches.
Yeah.
I brought my little show and tell hutch in here to show you guys.
You made a model.
To give you so I could move it around and do these classes. Give you a general idea of hutch structure. I'm going to let you talk about the hutch because I'm going to just hold this thing.
Oh, okay.
I'll be right back.
What is that, middle-aged man? Middle-aged man from Saturday Night Live did that hand motion. So he built a mini version of a popular style of hutch.
Yeah, if I was in high school, they would have gave me an A.
It's similar to our hutches, but we have a 3-tiered hutch system. So what's important here, the whole structure has a roof to protect the cage that the quail are in from the elements, rain, snow, sleet, sun, direct sunlight, so they're protected. What else is important? There's lots of ventilation. So quail, they have a higher body temperature, and they just expel a lot of heat, and even just breathing, they're expelling moisture that's evaporating.
Well, here's a question. Is it okay to have it ventilated in the winter, ma'am?
Yes, it is
Oh,
okay.
you need to have it ventilated in the
Yes.
winter.
Did you want to comment any more on that?
No, I'm just thinking of questions that pop up.
Yeah,
People
so
might have.
what we recommend is having an open area and a shelter area. And
That's a shelter area, so
yeah.
that area is kind of sealed off,
All
just at one side.
and
that
the bottom.
end, not the whole thing. Yeah, the bottom and the side.
And usually what we enjoy doing, because the quail, it's the quality of their life is what we're doing, and also mimicking like their environment that they would they would do if they were on the ground. They would do dust baths, just like chickens. They love taking dust baths. So we use sand, and we put sand in the bottom of the enclosed area, and there's a hole for them to go back and forth.
Open the door. See, it's cool. You got a
And
little
there's a
walk
little
through the hole.
But the top is fully there's hardware cloth all the way on the
Show
whole
them this
thing.
piece of hardware cloth I cut. That's
So-
a 1/2-inch piece.
Yeah, so this is a 1/2 inch, and we do recommend not going any bigger than 1/2 inch for any of the areas.
We coat the
because-
entire thing in hardware cloth, not chicken wire.
Right. Chicken wire, there are predators like fox, raccoon, that they can actually bite through chicken wire.
And the holes are
And
huge.
The holes are huge. So when you're predator proofing, which is another important thing with a hutch or housing for really any poultry, because they're just vulnerable, is not having any holes anywhere that is 1 inch or bigger. Because if you have 1 inch, a rat can fit through that. Raccoons will put their hands through that and grab your bird, and they'll try and pull it through. Snakes can fit through that. So a 1/2 inch will prevent predators from getting through. And it's a stronger type of wire. And you don't want to do anything smaller than 1/2 inch on the bottom. If you have
The droppings will get clogged.
if you have it so that the droppings go right through, the quail manure will end up clogging if it's smaller than a 1/2 inch. So
Yeah, that 1/2 inch hardware cloth is really perfect for the birds. And on the floor with the 1/2 inch hardware cloth, it's best to use a coated, vinyl coated. Go ahead, tell them.
They sell actually vinyl coated hardware cloth, but you can also get like a spray on vinyl
Yeah, but
coating.
why do we do that?
And the reason why is because just like other poultry, they are able to get a cut just on the pad of their feet or even on their toes if they nick their feet somewhere on something sharp, if there's a burr. Because just raw hardware cloth, if you run your hands on it, you'll notice that there's some burrs on it. And if they cut their feet, even if you have like a nail or some kind of harsh wood somewhere too, if they cut their feet, then that becomes an entryway for an infection. So then they can get bumblefoot. They'll end up with a bump that's like a sore, and it's quite the process to like help them fix that. Yeah. So the best thing is to prevent it.
Okay, a couple things about this hutch. Isn't it heavy? All right. There's the tray for removal. Show them that.
Oh, yeah.
First of all, so the droppings area where these birds are going to the bathroom, animals can reach up there through the floor and grab the quail's feet unless you have something close by to protect them, and that's why I have that on our hutches. I have this droppings pan relatively close to the floor. So animals, rats, or whatever, if there's a predator at night, it doesn't get under there and cannot do harm to them. I don't drop that that dropping tray very low. I keep it as close really as I can without becoming a problem.
Yeah, just make sure that your flooring is properly supported, so that when the quail's weight is on it, they're not making it bow.
One other thing, quails do not do what chickens do. They don't lay eggs in a nest box. They don't go nesting. They just plop eggs wherever. So on this cage, see if you can get those eggs to come out. There's like this. Let me turn it so they can see. There's an extension on there, which is where the eggs will roll out. So you can design cages.
So
if you're designing it from scratch, if you're designing from scratch, it might be a wise idea to have this egg roll out where the eggs will, on that slight degree, because the floor is bent down just slightly, the eggs will roll out towards the front where you can grab them. But you do want to make sure that that area is going to be able to be sealed off at night so predators don't get access.
Yeah, so you could do something as simple as placing like a 2x4, some sort of board on here that clips on with some sort of, something that a predator wouldn't knock off.
All right, my arm's killing me.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a nice little hutch. All right. Okay.
I'm trying to think of anything else with that.
Talk about hutch.
Yeah, so the main things is lots of ventilation, shelter from the elements and direct sunlight, predator proofing.
Predator proofing is a big issue. Yeah. Again, same thing. We have videos on our YouTube channel about these hutches. I do a walkthrough of our actual hutch and give information about that. But like she's saying, with quail, the key is ventilation. They respirate quite a bit. They produce a lot of water.
Sometimes people will have sand in the sandbox or the dust bath area, and they'll say like it gets damp and just wet, and they'll be, why is the sand? I just put fresh sand in there.
They think
why
the bird's
is it
going to
wet?
bathroom in the sand, and
really, it just may be that they don't have enough ventilation. That's why we like the whole top to be open, enough ventilation in that closed-in area, and just the bird's breathing will create just moisture in the air, and it'll drip the condensation and everything.
In the freezing cold of winter, I sealed up just to see if it would help them stay warm, because it was freezing below zero. So I put a cover on top of their well-ventilated sand bath area. So what happened was, not only did they stay warm, I had to clean out that whole area, remember? It was just dripping with water because their heat was, they're very efficient heating. So people always ask, do I need to heat my chickens? Do I need to add heat to my quail? Because intuitively, again, as humans, we like heat. We like to stay warm. Well, we're mammals. We're not covered in feathers. And I always like to say, if the birds needed heat, birds would be extinct because we have winters. And you see these little Tweety birds, and they do fabulously.
Yeah, their feathers do wonderful job.
They're designed for these environments, and they're designed for that environment. And the quail thrive in cold environments or very warm ones. But again, in warm environments, same thing. You want to take some precautions for it. Maybe make sure there's shade, plenty of ventilation. You can even throw a big block of ice in their waterer if you're giving water. All right.
And if it's super cold, then you can create a windbreak somewhere just with wind.
Sharon had a very good question.
I guess they don't roost. They don't. Some people who like to create like a more natural setting for them will put like maybe branches and stuff, and they may run along them, but
yeah,
they
like
don't.
in an aviary.
Yeah, but they don't roost like chickens. They pretty much just like plop down wherever they end up standing when they're ready to go to sleep.
If you guys are wondering what an aviary is, if you're new to birds, so it's basically like an aquarium for birds. It's supposed to mimic the natural environment, right? And give them free range, but it's an enclosure.
And it could be a really big one.
It could be a big one, but it's still an enclosure, but it's supposed to give them a natural like, kind of environment.
It has like a ground flooring or bedding material.
Yeah, so that's that, if you're wondering. Okay, cool, yeah. So they don't roost, they don't nest like chickens in a nesting box.
Yeah, they don't hatch their chicks. Very occasionally, some people will get their quail to go broody. It's very rare, and it's quite the project
so why is this?
To do that.
Oh, sorry. People wonder, well, why aren't they laying on their eggs? What's wrong with these animals? So they're domesticated now, and they've been domesticated and bred for so long that nobody's keeping them to hatch eggs. They're collecting eggs and hatching them and growing them for egg production and meat production and fast, rapid growth in their form.
Yeah, and there are a few chicken breeds that are that way too, that the broodiness really instinct has been bred out of them, and they just primarily lay.
Yeah, with chickens, so domesticated chickens come from they're one species of animal. The quail, there are a few species, and there are, a variety of breeds. So, but we like, again, for practicality, these jumbo quail, man. So the objective is I want to produce food, I want to produce eggs, particularly and meat, economically within a confined space. So these quails meet that need, and they're not making a lot of noise. So they do meet a lot of noise, and it's low cost to start up. So we started doing our quail thing back in 2020 when everybody went wacky, like right at the beginning, like end of 2019. I was like, whoa, man, I bet they're going to shut down that whole planet. Let's start raising food. So we came over and we started investigating and learning about all this stuff and really put all our effort into it. And this seemed to be like what? You chose to do quail. They're like a really...
The jumbo quail.
Yeah, because they're such a phenomenal food producer and they meet that need.
They're just very consistent. Like chickens are great. Like we encourage, if you're able, to have a multi-layered food system.
Did a video on that one.
Yeah. So and what I mean by that is having different types of food sources. Like we do have chickens, we have ducks, we have meat rabbits, vegetable garden, those types of things. But the quail, they're very consistent, and we're able to reproduce them so quickly. They're predictable, and the chickens, they lay their eggs, but they just go, their production, even though we have a good breed for laying, they can go up and down with their output on the eggs. We have black Australorps, so they do go broody once in a while, which means they'll stop laying eggs, and then they want to sit and hatch. I take the eggs away so they don't have any, but it's just the quail, I don't know, like their bodies are smaller, so with feeding them, you know how much you're feeding them, and the output of the energy that they're eating to produce their eggs, it's just pretty consistent. The chickens, they seem to, like with the weather, the temperatures and such, alternating up in hot and cold seems to affect them. The quail can be affected, but the chickens seem to be affected to a higher degree, and they might skip laying. I don't know. That's not the best explanation, but I do feel that the quail, they're pretty consistent.
Yes, from our experience. Yeah, the quail have always been consistent. I mean, they're laying eggs in the freezing weather. In the cold, when it gets really freezing out, you got to go out a few times a day, perhaps, because the eggs will freeze.
Yeah.
Because they're sitting out in the cold. Because they're still laying. Okay, so we talked about housing. We talked about the intro to all the quail. A couple other things I want to go over with you guys if you're new to these birds, so you understand really what's going on with them. feeding and nutrition, and I want to talk about that in two capacities. Jerry Schultz, hey, how do you like to fix? Oh wait, before I get into this, I'm going to answer this question from Jerry. How do you like to fix the meat you get? I'm assuming you mean how do I cook it? That's a good question. So, I like talking about this. I cook all the meals. I cook everything here.
He's like a chef.
Yeah, and quail,
And
you can do, you know, it's extremely versatile. You can do a million things with it.
Yeah.
So because I've cooked it, like in fact, I'm not trying to pitch this channel a lot, but I did a video on here on that. Remember that quail is really good? The white wine glaze kind of. I did this video on there how I pan seared it with, I think, mushroom, garlic, onion. Oh, so good. Butter. It was really good. It was really easy to make, right? But the way I usually cook it, honestly, is I'll throw about 5, 6, or 7 into, what do you call it, a pressure cooker? A little pressure cooker. Because I'm usually just using that meat.
You can also use a slow cooker.
I might cook the whole body in the oven or on a grill or something like that. But because we have a lot and, you know, I do all this kitchen work, I want to use the meat, and I'm not really looking to do the whole body. It's just not what I'm doing. Anyway, I remember the video, very impressive. Oh, thanks. Thanks, Steve. That's Steve. Hey, it's Griffin. Hey, Griff. I'm doing this one special for you, Griff, because you mentioned these things last week. Anyway.
With the pressure cooker or slow cooker, the reason why I like it personally is because you can put the whole little bird in there, and then you can, you know, it'll cook, and then you can scoop the whole little bird out and set it on your plate and have a whole bird. Or if you want to very easily pull the meat off, it'll come off the bone very easily and just nice. You can shred the meat. You can keep it whole if you shred it, but the point is it's coming off of the bones very easily.
Yeah, so if you have any engineers in the house, or data friends out there, anybody who's big into data, that's probably the more efficient or preferable method, because you're getting a higher amount of protein off of that animal. You know, when you're cooking on a grill, there's those little specks of meat still stuck here and there, you know what I mean? In the nooks and crannies, and the guys are like trying to get it out, because it's like, I'm not wasting this. So that's not happening when I do the pressure cooking. Like, all of the meat just falls off the bone. It's very tender and tasty. And then I might, depending if I cooked it with something in the pressure cooker, or I may use the meat then, and then throw it in a skillet real quick with, what do you call it, like fajita mix, something like peppers, onions, or something like this. Or throw it on top of a salad, which is great. But, you know, cooking's great. Like, that's a hard question to answer. How do you cook? You know, you get in the kitchen and there's something new every single day.
They're pretty filling. They're very meaty in the breast, and for an adult, they look like small birds, but they're very meaty. And if the hunks of meat, it's a nice
protein
piece.
So first of all, I don't get into the whole dietary issue. Protein is extremely filling. If you have a protein meal, the protein fills your gut up and you feel full. That's why they say have a protein meal.
Yeah.
I'm trying to lose weight.
So for an adult, like 1.5 to 2 quail on the plate with other food is plenty of food.
I'm dying of thirst. Let me get a drink. Tell him a story or something.
He likes eating the little legs, because they're still, even though their legs are small, there's still a good bit of meat on there.
I like the legs better. I think they have a little richer taste. By the way, you guys are like, what does quail taste like?
Yeah.
Everybody always asks that. So that's another. So, oh God.
It doesn't
This
taste
is so
very
off
foreign. I mean,
I don't want to like go on a side loony thing here. Taste is perception, and it's subjective, and people taste things and they perceive flavors differently.
And how you prep it and what you put on it. I mean,
I don't want to give a BS answer, but that's true. But the second part of that truth is, I think quail tastes like a dark meat chicken, not as rich. Yeah, it tastes like a dark meat chicken. It's not as rich because there's no fat. It's extremely lean. So if you want a fattier flavor, add fat. You know, you got beef, whatever, pork meat, whatever you have sitting there, bacon fat. Add your fat, butter. You can add fat to it, of course. It's going to enhance that flavor. Salt and fat. We love it. So it tastes like, I guess, dark meat.
Yeah.
Kind of like chicken. And it's very lean.
Yeah.
Until you start dumping the fat.
I love it. It's good.
It's good. Okay. So moving on to the thing I was about to talk about. Feeding and nutrition. And I want to talk about feeding and nutrition in its practical means as well as in the context of their growth, which is two totally different things. Right? So we discussed earlier, quail grow very rapidly.
Yeah, so pretty much you see these little eggs, you know, so this egg is this big, and that means when it hatches, the chick is that big. The chick is really tiny. They're so cute. I just took chicks out of the incubator today.
Can I bring them up or they get too fragile?
It's
I don't want to bring that up. They're tiny.
They're like popcorn. They're not like chicken chicks. Chicken chicks are like, they'll like bumble around and they're just like bewildered and you can hold it. But quail, they're like, when you put them in the brooder, they're like ants, the babies. They just spread out and they're curious and they're running. They're like on fast forward or pause, sleeping. They're like running. And then they're like popcorn. They just jump around. So they're kind of easy if you're not careful to drop. Anyway, so the chick is, you know, it's like this big when it hatches, but pretty much within 3 days, this little chick, you know, it's noticeable, the growth within 3 days. It's noticeable. And each week they will double in size. And by like a week, their wing feathers are growing in. If you have them in a brooder in a temperature controlled area like a room indoors, then you can start weaning them off of heat in the brooder around 1.5 weeks to 2 weeks old. 2 weeks old, they won't need the heat anymore because they're covered in feathers. Now, if you're looking at chickens, chicken chicks, they are very, very slow growing with their feathers. Yeah, sure.
There's another one, people. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt her, but what she's talking about, ding, 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 it's in this raising quail chicks with confidence thingy. All those questions are in there too. The reason I'm saying this is because you guys, nobody wants to go and like skim through a video and try to get this information. It's like, oh, I watched that video. You don't have to do that. You can
we want to make sure you guys feel confident in what you're doing, what you're
in the description, towards. There's a link to this
about
raising the chicks, which is the critical point of raising these birds. If you if they're not getting sufficient nutrients and they're not growing at the optimal rate that they're designed to grow, you're going to not only inhibit their growth, you're going to impact their adult size and very likely impact the offspring. You can have issues with offspring from runty parents. So that initial stage is important. I don't know if many, what do you call them, quail breeders stress that to people getting chicks, but that's really important and that should be kept in mind. Like you can't like be like, oh, they'll be all right, they ate, and then walk away, because just like 6 hours can impact them.
They have a fast metabolism, and that's because they're growing so fast, and also they're running a higher body temperature than chickens. So you want to support that growth with a high protein feed that's properly, balanced. And generally, when you're looking at feeds, you're going to want like 28 to 30% protein, and you want to keep them on that during the whole duration of their growth period.
For 8 weeks?
So once they stop growing at 10 weeks, however, at 6 weeks, they're now sexually mature. The hens are going to start laying eggs. The roosters are going to start getting a little rowdy. And their growth, how fast they're growing per week is going to start to slow down by that 6 week mark. So the food can be transitioned now. You can start transitioning them to have part of it adult food and part of it the chick food.
Take a scoop of chick food, take a scoop of the adult food, and mix them up.
The hens...
And you're starting to cut it.
Yeah, because it's better to not do a sudden change. The hens are going to start to need calcium in their diet, and the adult food, which is usually around 16 to 17% protein, much less, it has the layer feed will have that 3.5% calcium that they need. The calcium will make their eggshells firm and strong. If they don't have calcium in their diet, then you'll end up with shellless eggs, and it'll just be like the membrane with the yolk and everything in there, which is could be dangerous to the hen because if it bursts inside of her before coming out, then that can cause internal infection and, not good. Also, calcium strengthens the hen's egg-laying muscles, and that will help prevent or lessen the risk of her prolapsing when laying an egg. And that's really painful. Her insides come out. Very painful. That's not good either. So you want to take care of them. So at 6 weeks, you can start cutting the feed, half adult, half juvenile. And it's good to keep them going with that higher percent, half of it higher percent, 30% protein until they're done growing. If you want to maximize how much they can grow. If you don't want to stunt their growth at all.
So in synopsis, that's a lot of information. They're eating high protein, about 30% till about 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. Then we're beginning to transition. At 6 or 7 weeks, we're mixing the grower feed, the 30% grower feed, with the adult layer feed. So we're mixing that up because they're going to stop growing at 10 weeks. And by 10 weeks, they're on 100% the layer feed.
The layer feed, yes.
Right.
You will notice when they're getting a little bigger, maybe 4 weeks and older, as they're eating the higher percent protein, you will notice that their manure, the size of their manure, is actually a little larger than what it'll be when they're on layer feed, and it's just that the way the protein and everything goes through their body.
Now we know. Okay, great. There was something else about feed I was about to say. Gosh, right. The animals should have food at all times. Chickens will eat until they explode, and chickens will get a lot of fat. So chickens get fat, and they'll just like people, they get, what do you call it, internal fat around their organs, they get fat issues. The quail don't do that so much. They eat until they're satiated, and then they go quailing.
They come back, and they visit the feeder as needed.
However, if that feeder runs empty, and they're sitting there with no food for a while...
And we're talking a day, maybe.
Oh, if that, they can get
less.
Then you may notice they're going to start the territorial kind of stuff, the pecking.
They're going to get grumpy,
and they may have issues with that. So it's fine to keep the food in there at all times, depending on what kind of feeder you use.
Well, but if they run out of feed, again, their high metabolism, it doesn't really go away because they're just high producers. They're producing eggs. Their bodies are always working.
They have a short lifespan. They have a short compared to chickens and ostriches, I guess.
So you can actually affect their weight. If they run out of feed, they can actually start losing weight, and that's really taxing on the body. They're starving, essentially. Yeah. So, important to make sure that the feeder's full or there's food available and water. Definitely both, obviously.
Yeah. Always food and always nice clean water for the animals. And I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Mm-hmm. But, that stuff, again, is in that little quail Q&A. So we talked about feeding. I'm going to go over this briefly. I don't want to go in depth because that's a big issue. Yeah. Now, I'm going to talk about breeding and reproduction briefly because, again, that's a little more involved. Mm-hmm. It's not complicated. Mm-hmm. It's a little more involved.
We do have detailed videos on that as well.
And we have detailed, go through our YouTube live, playlist. Mm-hmm. If you're bored and for some reason you want to hear us rambling like this, there's a playlist with all of these classes we did. And we have one on breeding and reproduction. We have one on hatching eggs. And again, there's supplements in there. There might be in this one too, for all of that stuff. So breeding and reproduction. So breeding and reproduction. This is where you get Facebook scammers. Because everybody is a reproducer. It's very easy to reproduce animals. You have a male one, talk to a female one, you sit in a room for a while, you come back later, and you got baby ones. Right? That's reproducing. It's easy. It's what they're designed to do. That's not good. So when you're talking to not a very qualified individual, they're just reproducing animals and giving you what reproduced. You may get lucky, and they may have had good stock to begin with. Breeding is different. Breeding, if you are acquiring these animals, and let's say, I want a meat program. Well, what do we know about meat? We want a lot of it. How do we get a lot of it? By making scrawny, sickly birds or big, healthy birds, right? We want the big, healthy birds. So this means we have a specific objective for the animals that are hatching. Now we have a foundation for our breeding. So breeding really is having a specific objective or set of objectives which are controlled, that you're monitoring and measuring the outcome of these objectives and maintaining the health of the animal, of course, because you don't want genetic issues. So you want healthy animals, and you're looking for a goal. Egg laying, egg proficient. See, we are trying to have proficient egg layers and we call it meat, healthy growth and sufficient meat for the structure of their body. They're larger. They're not 10-ounce birds, jumbo quail. They're 13 or 14-ounce jumbo quail. Some of them get bigger sometimes.
But you do need to keep in mind there is a standard for animals. The standard of perfection is what they call SOP. For any animal that people breed, even horses, dogs, whatever, cats, there's a standard of perfection. Other chicken breeds for a reason, and that gives you a template to know what is this animal supposed to look like, what is the performance, the expected performance, what's the shape supposed to look like, and the whys behind all of that. Now with the quail, the jumbo quail, you want to keep them just under 16 ounces a pound. And you don't want to go over, because what happens is and this is the same with other egg layers like chickens, the bigger the bird gets, the more energy it's going to need to take care of its body, to run its system. And so that means the high energy it needs also to produce the eggs, that's going to be allocated to just staying alive. So it's going to start laying less eggs.
You're compromising its function.
And if you have birds that are smaller, but also what's going to likely happen if you have big birds, the eggs will get bigger too. So that's also going to take energy, more energy to make bigger eggs. If the birds are smaller, then they're going to crank out a ton of eggs, like more eggs than what your bigger birds are going to do, because they're tinier birds. They don't need as much energy. So that's why there's a standard of perfection. You don't want to go over the 16 ounces, because they are supposed to be productive animals, and you want to keep that production up.
Right.
So things to think about.
Very good. Thank you, Miss Angela. Always appreciate your input. Okay, what are we talking about here? Oh, because this is a Griff special. Griff, if you're still watching, Griffin, feel free to drop in one of your important bird-related questions. We'd be happy to answer them, because that's what we like to do here. Okay, let's talk about bad stuff. I love talking about the bad stuff, because I'm a realist. Let's talk about...
also mention about lighting as well, probably.
I'll mention that later, because
Yeah.
I want to talk about health and disease management. I'm going to go over that briefly. So, the quail, are they susceptible to illness? Well, I think anything that's alive is susceptible to illness. Do they have a high propensity for illness? Not if they're cared for properly and the cage is clean.
Yeah, anything that's in fecal matter or manure or just like grossness is going to create bad stuff. So proper care.
The quail are probably most susceptible to the same illness that chickens are, which is respiratory issues. And the respiratory issues come from what we discussed before, which is the proper
ventilation. Yes, if they don't have. So yeah, pretty much if it's too stuffy, if they're not getting enough ventilation, or if sometimes people will put diatomaceous earth in, it's like a powder, in their bedding material or bathing material. And that's something that's used for like external parasite management. Because it's like, if you look at it at a microscopic level, the dust particles, it's like kind of like glass or like little razors, and it goes on the mites that are creeping around the structure, and it just works its way into their exoskeleton, and they die.
It's a vicious world down there at parasite land.
This is not something you want to breathe in. People use it a lot, often, but you just want to make sure you're not breathing it in when using it. And some people also will put it in the bedding, but the birds will then, they kick up the dust bath and all over them, and then they're breathing it. So that can cause respiratory illness if they're breathing that. So it's good to make sure that's not something you'll have to put in their dust bath. I don't recommend it.
So DE, diatomaceous earth, but more particularly, I like leaning to filthy cage, and poor ventilation. So, I mean, just, you know, again, intuitively, like in a chicken house, they're going to the bathroom in there, they're flapping dust. Now, if you don't have ventilation to dry things out, and there's moisture because these animals respirate a lot and they're putting out a lot of air, or they're putting out a lot of water. Now you have the perfect breeding grounds for germs. You know, it's warm and it's moist and it's dark. So you're going to have organisms thriving in that environment because usually, well, let's eliminate what's easiest to eliminate, which is the ventilation issue. I'm just going to make sure it's highly ventilated, and that's probably going to cut down a lot of, which it does, once you have that air flowing through there. So do they breathe a lot? Why do I keep mentioning the moisture thing? And does that even make sense? So I always like to illustrate, like when you're a little kid and you go in the winter and you go, and you see the water vapor. Well, that's happening right now too. You just don't see it. And the chickens have the same thing. They're breathing out that water vapor every expiration. Right? So you'll notice it'll start to condensate if it's not properly ventilated. And that's bad. We don't like that. Because that's when you're getting the respiratory issues. And the same with the quail. That's why we showed you this hutch. It's very ventilated because if it's sealed up with just little holes here and there, they're going to overheat. They'll probably croak really if there's no ventilation.
Yeah.
But more precisely, if it's poorly ventilated, you're going to have a lot of moisture in there. And you're going to wonder, why is it so wet in here?
And then also, obviously, Christopher mentioned the manure you want to make. That's why it's, we actually, because we're all about being efficient, but meeting their needs, taking care of them, we are big fans of the hutch system because it's up off the ground, the manure can fall through, and then we just clean the sand area as needed. But because they're smaller birds, they're very hardy as far as injury goes. Quail, they heal so quick because they're like little Wolverine, you know, X-Men, because of that quick metabolism that they have. If they have a wound, it'll close up real quickly.
If the quail was a human, you could get in a 60-mile-an-hour car crash and you'll be at work the next day. You'll be like, I'm okay, I'll be in.
But
they're very hardy.
When it comes to internal, you know, illness, they are not hardy. Chickens are hardy internally. They're very hardy. They're always pecking and eating stuff on the ground. But yeah, so the quail.
Yeah, can I explain that one? Yeah. I'm talking about disease. I love disease. So, yeah, the chickens are hardy. I love talking about this because this is really beautiful biology. It's really, I'm not going to the science of it, but the chicken's constantly exposed to the environment and it's constantly exposed to different organisms, which is becoming hardy to, right?
And they're really, pretty much at all times, they're carrying parasites.
Something.
But the parasites stay
they
in
don't
line because they're healthy birds.
Right, they have an immune system that's identifying and preventing them from growth, and they don't have an infectious load. Now, a little tiny baby quail, like people always get quail, can I keep them with my chickens? People do. We advise against it because they're a little tinier bird, their system's smaller, they can get overwhelmed a little quicker. And we also advise to keep other animals, 50 feet or so, a distance away, so there's no cross-contamination. Because you don't want a chicken who's hardy to a million different pathogens, right? Coming in contact with this kindergartner, this little quail, who's going to get overwhelmed by those things and then spread it around the quail covey.
And when you think about natural behavior of the quail, they're busybodies. If they were out in the wild, they would not be staying in the same area. They just keep going. They just keep moving around and traveling. So they don't, they're not going to be camping out in the same ground.
Yeah, if you had quail just running around the field and you somehow close that off and they're all protected, they're going to adapt to that environment. They'll become hardy to whatever's in the environment. All animals do, unless there's a pathogenic load. The
way that humans keep domesticated animals, though, usually is in a smaller structure, and then manure buildup. So that's the issue. So making sure if you have an aviary type style, there's management of bedding material involved.
So just keep them clean, keep the other animals away. It's best to keep them isolated, especially if they're in their cage system.
and they do fly. They don't quite fly like songbirds.
That's a good point.
But they will fly up about 6 feet if
they take to the wing.
Yeah,
they're not like
if they're at a downhill, they'll glide for a
Yeah.
good distance. But generally, they'll go up 6 feet and then they'll come back down. They'll do that like 3 times, and because they're jumbo, they get like tired. So then they'll plop down, then they'll start scuttling and running. And if you get out, they're going for the bushes and the shrubs. So make sure you throw yourself between them and the shrubs. But because they camouflage very well. But yeah, so they will go over a fence. So that they do need a roof system.
Yeah, I didn't talk about that. I should guess I'll mention it. So the hutches, there's a height. Again, it's in that Q&A PDF. But just to let you know, because of the quail do take to the wing and they'll hop. It's in their kind of instinct. If they get startled, they'll spook and they'll bump up. Well, the hutch is, at a certain height. What is it? We usually 12 inches.
Yeah, I would say some people do even 8 inches, but
anyway,
10 inches to 10 to 24.
Yeah, whatever. Like 8 inches to 24 inches. That quail is accelerating, but it's not getting to critical speed at 24 inches. So when he hits his head up on that hardware cloth, he's not going to kill himself. Now, if he keeps going up, he's getting more and more power as he's, like a rocket. Mm-hmm. And if it gets too high, he can really injure himself. So you want a lower roof. So if that quail gets startled and he hits that roof, which has give because it's hardware cloth, because they do jump, we don't want him getting injured. So about 10 inches, 12 inches, up to 24 inches.
Yeah, we
18.
do recommend definitely having, something that gives. So if you're modifying a cage, a hutch, it has maybe it's higher than, if it has a wooden roof on it, ceiling, then either take it off or add, below it a floating wire or even pad it. Because they will hop. They hop just because they're playing. They'll hop up, because they're playing. But if something startles them, which will happen if they're outside, a dog runs past them or just anything, or maybe you forgot to collect eggs for the day and it's nighttime, it's got dark, you go outside with your flashlight to go collect eggs, that'll scare them. So, what were you saying?
This is for the demonstration you were just talking about. The roof, the hutch.
This part. Yeah, so the wire gives, so they'll hit it, they'll bounce off, but it won't cause, structural damage with their neck. Yeah. But that is, for people who don't keep that in mind, that is something people encounter. Why is my quail laying on its side? It's not dead, but it's not moving. They seem to be kind of, dazed and paralyzed. It's a head injury. If
you notice an abrasion, a cut, or laceration on the quail, take him out of the hutch, clean off the injury, maybe put an antibiotic ointment on it, and isolate him, and he'll usually heal up just like he split just fine.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, I forgot to mention. I'm not a vet, nor is this veterinary advice. This is just experiential advice that we've dealt with many times. So, but they heal very quickly, and we've had ones that look like they were brutal, because just whatever, an animal got to them, or a quail attack, or whatever, and they heal. They heal fine.
Yeah.
Most every time. Anything else I'm leaving out that's pretty important?
Lighting, poultry, egg-laying creatures, they do need 14 to 18 hours of light, total light a day. So the summertime, they're getting that from the sun. Make sure you have them not in an overly super shaded area, because the light affects their hormone level, and that's going to determine whether they're laying or not. So the light will keep them laying. If you have birds and you live on the equator, your birds are going to lay year round, no issue. If you're in an area where the sun, the year, it changes into the winter months, if you want to keep them laying. Now quail, their lifespan isn't terribly long. It's like maybe 3, 4, 5 years maybe, but their egg laying time, they're going to be laying really well up to about 1.5 years and start decreasing.
That's when you want to start breeding and replacing before they hit that 18-month mark.
Or looking for a breeder to buy from.
Yeah, or buy. if you want to keep consistent egg production. Because like she said, at 18 months, those hens, the females, are going to start decreasing their egg production. It's not going to be as vibrant.
Yeah.
It's not going to be at that rate.
Yeah, they're gonna start getting a little tired. So the light, if you have them for food production, then you're gonna want to keep them laying all year long. But once you start getting into the shorter day, once the days become shorter, like we are now, we're going into September. If you don't have a light in yet, and we're like an LED strip on a timer sort of thing, or something bright enough, you use Christmas lights, something bright enough you could read a book by.
Same issue with chickens, if you're familiar with them.
Same thing. But quail, if you don't get it in by like mid-September, we're in the East Coast of the United States, then they'll go into a molt, and they'll do like a heavy molt. And it's just like a normal thing. The lighting is what's telling them, oh, let's replace all our feathers. What will happen is they'll still look like they have feathers, but you're going to see feathers like everywhere, and they're growing new feathers, and that takes a lot of energy, so they're going to stop laying eggs. So get that light in there before the light starts decreasing, the sunlight starts decreasing. They will still have a light molt, but they'll keep laying, and they'll finish the light molt much quicker because it's not as serious of
awesome.
a changing of clothing.
Yeah, good stuff, man. Yeah, I think that was... that about does it. I think that does it. Yeah, I mean, that's these things are very easy to keep. They produce a lot of food, and I'm stressing this printed material because I really want, if you guys want to be able to do, nobody wants to look anything up. So I want you guys to be successful. Nobody wants to spend hours and hours learning a basic thing that can be taught in 3 or 4 sentences. That's why we get on YouTube, and you get onto the how-to videos, you're like trying to find, just get to the point. So all that stuff just gets to the point, but it does it succinctly, and it does it completely.
Yeah, so like you don't know what you don't know, and then you come up to an obstacle or an issue, didn't realize it was going to be an issue, and didn't know you needed to research it, but all the info is here.
25 questions. That's all you need to know. It's like 25 questions, and it'll tell you everything, like more than what we were talking about here. But I'll go over that stuff and answer it for you so you can have some guidelines to set up. And again, there's tons of information online. We did hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of videos educating about this stuff. But if you look at it, like I said, our YouTube Live, you'll find the titles will tell you what we're doing and what we're discussing, if there's something specific you're looking for. Mm-hmm. But I think that's that about succinctly as possible.
Yeah.
Describes the benefits of quail, how to raise them, what their structures look like. We didn't get really into breeding. That's a little more involved, but again, we did one of those if you want to learn how to do that. Breeding and hatching. And
chicks, raising chicks. We have video about brooding the chicks and just the whole process of growing.
If you're curious, they hatch in 17 days?
Yeah, technically they have it 18. But if your incubator is regulating properly with the temperature and the humidity, then they're going to start hatching. You're going to get the early ones at day 16. And then 17, most of them will be out. 18, the last few. If it's not being regulated properly, you might have them hatching, taking a lot longer. And that's not the best thing, because then you can end up with weak chicks.
Weak, no good chicks. Yeah, so if you're going to hatch, that's something you can look into. We have an instruction on that in one of these videos. But I hope that was helpful. I hope that was interesting.
Yeah, if you guys are new, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, like the video. That just, we're getting our channel going, and that's a big help for us.
Yeah, we do a lot of these. Usually every week we do a education video. I'll do like a researched academic thing if you guys are new. Like every week I try to teach a different subject. I've been doing a different subject. A ton of them. Like they're all different. There's a ton of stuff to learn.
Yeah.
And that's like the whole homestead thing. It's skills acquisition. Okay, skills acquisition. Oh, it was great. Oh, thanks, Sharon.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to message me on the old Facebook or over on the YouTube. If you really have a question, yeah, since you're on Facebook, you can hit me on the messenger about these quail. Or if you don't have the links over there and you want them, I can send them to you. If you send me a message, I'll be happy to copy paste and send them to you the link, because that educational material is really, really easy to read. I wrote it so a kid could read it and it would be fun. Like I put all my little illustrations on there, right? To make it easy and fun.
Yeah, because us adults, we're like big kids.
Yeah, but like this whole self-sufficiency or homestead thing, small farm, whatever, the people doing it are a completely different mindset than Football Joe. I mean, even though we may be Football Joe, we still have a different mindset. We're about self-starting, teaching ourselves, appreciating, not just doing hard work, but appreciating the hard work that we're doing. Yeah, there's satisfaction in it. You know, most people, they have a chore to do, they're like, it's totally different. It's like, yeah, I know I'm going to be going a little bit, but I appreciate being able to do that because I know the fruits of my labor. They're coming up.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that does it, right?
Yeah, thank you guys so much for watching and listening, and for the questions and comments we've gotten. Yeah, I hope you guys have a wonderful, I think it's Labor Day.
Yeah, holiday
coming up.
weekend,
Yeah, have a
man.
wonderful
Eat the
holiday.
hamburgers and all that. Is that
Stay
what people
safe.
do? Hamburgers
Yeah, I suppose
and
so.
things? I don't know. All right, you guys. It's been a blast as usual. I'm clicking off here, and I'll see you later. There goes
Bye.
the Facebook and the
Bye.